Mom pointed at my son. He took the $6,000. Who else could have done it? My sister shouted. He was lurking around the safe. My son started crying. I stayed completely silent, then slid a hard drive across the table. 5 minutes later, my sister's husband watched the footage, and his face went paper white. Accused of stealing $6,000. My mother pointed at my son across the dining table and said it like it was a fact. He took the $6,000. Who else could have done it? My sister was already yelling. He was lurking around the safe. I saw him. He was acting weird the whole time. Mason looked at me frozen. He's 15. He doesn't even know how to lie properly, let alone pull off a theft. His face crumpled and he started crying right there in front of all of them. And I just sat there, silent, because I already knew who had taken the money. I knew exactly what happened, and they were about to find out too. But to explain how we got to that moment, I have to go back 4 days. Thanksgiving. We just arrived at my parents' house in Fredericksburg. I was tired, Mason was in a mood, and Brooke, my sister, was already in full holiday dictator mode. Her husband Kyle was by the fireplace pretending to care about football with my dad, and my mom was busy barking about the gravy. It was the usual chaos. The kind that makes you want to leave before dessert. Around 3 p.m. I went upstairs to grab my camera. I wanted to get some decent photos of the family before people started drinking too much and arguing over politics like they always did. As I passed my parents' bedroom, I saw movement. The door was cracked open. Kyle was in there, alone. He didn't hear me coming, and I don't think he ever noticed the creak in the hallway floor. I stopped. He was standing right in front of the safe in my dad's closet. The one that no one ever talks about but everyone knows is there. He had the door open. In his hands were stacks of cash. Real thick stacks. He didn't even hesitate. He stuffed them into his jacket like he'd done it before. I didn't say a word. I just pulled out my camera and flipped it to video. I hit record and stood completely still, filming the whole thing. I should have said something right then. But I didn't. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe I didn't want to ruin Thanksgiving in front of Mason. Maybe I wanted to see how far Kyle would go with this. I saved the footage to a backup hard drive later that night and didn't tell a soul. Until today. 4 days later, I got a call from my mom. I could tell by her voice something was wrong. She told me to come over. He wanted to talk. Said it was serious. When we showed up, it was all of them, Mom, Dad, Brooke, and Kyle, waiting at the kitchen table. They didn't even ask us to sit before it started. Accusing my son of theft. Accusing Mason of stealing $6,000. I didn't say a word. Not at first. I just listened while my son's name was dragged through the dirt by people who claimed to love him. And then when they were all out of breath, I reached into my bag and pulled out the hard drive. I slid it across the table. No one moved. Then my dad plugged it into his laptop and hit play. 5 minutes later, Kyle's face turned the color of paper. The room went dead silent the second the footage started playing. There was Kyle on screen, plain as day, standing in my parents' bedroom. His hand on the safe dial, twisting it like he'd done it 100 times. No hesitation. No confusion. He knew the combination. That was the first thing that hit me. He knew it. He opened the safe, reached in and pulled out stacks of bills. Counted a few with his thumb, then shoved them into the inside pocket of his blazer. Calm like he was just grabbing gum. No one breathed. My dad sat back like someone had just punched him in the stomach. My mom's eyes were locked on the screen, like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Brooke's mouth opened slightly but no sound came out. Mason was still crying. I leaned forward and pressed pause. No one moved. I looked directly at Brooke. I asked her if she still wanted to finish the sentence she'd started earlier. The one where she called my son a thief. She looked at Kyle, then back at me. Still nothing. I turned to my mom. Asked her if this was what family meant now, ambushing me and my kid, throwing accusations based on what, exactly? A gut feeling? Brooke say so? My dad finally spoke. Quietly. He asked Kyle if he had anything to say. Kyle looked trapped. He opened his mouth once, then closed it. I could see the math running in his head. Deny it? Say it was old footage? Say it was a prank? But he couldn't come up with anything. He stood up suddenly and said he needed air. Walked out the back door and didn't come back for a while. Then Brooke started. Loud. Panicked. Said it must be some kind of misunderstanding. That Kyle would never do something like this. That maybe he was putting money in the safe, not taking it out. That the footage didn't show the full picture. I didn't bother answering her. I just got up and told Mason to grab his coat. That's when my mom asked me not to leave. She said we needed to talk about this. As a family. Figure it out. She said maybe Mason saw Kyle and got curious. Maybe he took the rest later. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After watching the footage with her own eyes, she still found a way to circle it back to my kid. That was it for me. I said they could figure it out however they wanted, but they weren't going to do it with me sitting at that table like it was some kind of trial. As I reached the door, Brooke followed us. Said if I told anyone about this, I'd be the one destroying the family. Not Kyle. Not her. Me. She said no one would believe me anyway. I didn't even respond. I drove home with Mason in the passenger seat, still sniffling, not saying a word. I kept my hand on his knee the whole drive. I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. But they were about to learn something. If you corner a mother and come for her child, you better be damn sure she's defenseless. And I wasn't. By the time I got home, I wasn't just angry, I was done. I put Mason to bed and told him everything was going to be okay, even though I didn't fully believe it yet. He asked if he had done something wrong. That question gutted me. I told him no. Not even close. Then I sat in the dark living room for hours replaying the footage. Every second of it. I had it on the backup drive on my computer, even uploaded it privately to cloud storage, just in case someone decided to get clever and try to make it disappear. I didn't plan revenge. I planned truth. Full exposure. The next morning I sent the footage to two people. My cousin Andrew, who worked in local law enforcement, and my Aunt Deborah, who was basically the glue of the extended family. She gossiped, sure, but when she spoke, people listened. Especially my mother. I didn't say much in the email. Just the video and a line. You might want to ask Brooke and Kyle about this before you start believing their story. It took less than 3 hours before my phone started blowing up. Aunt Deborah called first, furious, not at me but at the situation. She said my mother had already called her, crying and confused. My cousin Andrew texted a simple, "Got it. You did the right thing." No further questions. That same afternoon, Brooke showed up at my door. I didn't even hesitate. I opened the door just wide enough to say one thing: "You need to leave. Now." She stood there on my porch trying to look composed. She said it was a mistake. That Kyle had been under a lot of stress. That they were in debt from some bad investment and he wasn't thinking clearly. She said she hadn't known anything at the time, and when she saw the video she panicked. That's why she blamed Mason. I asked her if she'd ever intended to come clean. If Mason hadn't been accused, would they have just kept the money and moved on? She didn't answer that. Just kept saying, "Please don't ruin our lives." I shut the door. That night my dad came by. Alone. He looked exhausted. He said he believed me. That he was sorry. That he didn't know Kyle had the safe combination, but it made sense now. Apparently, a few years back he helped them store some documents when they were between houses. My dad must have shared the combo then, not thinking anything of it. He said my mom was spiraling, blaming herself for everything but also blaming me for making it public. I told him Mason's tears weren't public. The accusations weren't whispered. So why should the truth be kept private? He didn't argue. The next day, Kyle resigned from his real estate firm. My cousin didn't push charges, but he made it very clear that if another dollar went missing from that house, Kyle was the first person they'd come for. Word spread fast. The family group chat went quiet. I left it that night. But the worst part? My mom didn't call. Not once. No apology. No explanation. Nothing. She picked her silence over her grandson. For the next 2 weeks, I didn't hear a word from my mother. Not even a text asking how Mason was doing. My dad checked in every few days, small talk mostly. Updates on how things were going at the house, how mom wasn't leaving her room much, how Brooke and Kyle had basically gone into hiding. But my mother? Nothing. What really messed with my head was how easily she had accused Mason. It hadn't even taken a full sentence from Brooke. She believed it instantly. No hesitation. No benefit of the doubt. Just straight to, he stole it. This wasn't just a mistake. This was her choosing sides. Mason stopped asking about it after a while, but I could tell he hadn't shaken it off. He barely touched his video games, barely smiled. One night I found him looking through old family photos on the couch. He asked me if we were ever going back there. I told him no. Not now. Maybe not ever. I think that's when he realized this wasn't going to blow over. Then out of nowhere my mother showed up. It was a Sunday. Late afternoon. She just rang the doorbell like nothing had happened. I didn't even want to open the door. But Mason was right there and saw her. So I opened it. She looked tired. Makeup done but something hollow in her face. She asked if we could talk. I let her in but told her she had 10 minutes. She sat on the edge of the couch like she didn't know what to do with her hands. Said she hadn't been herself lately. That the pressure of Thanksgiving, the stress, Brooks panicking, she got caught up in all of it. She said she never really believed Mason did it, but things escalated fast and she didn't know how to stop it. He said she was sorry. She kept saying it. I let her talk but I didn't say anything back. When she was done, she asked if Mason would come out so she could apologize to him directly. I said no. Not yet. She cried. Told me she missed us. That she wanted to fix things. I told her she didn't try to fix anything when her grandson was sobbing at that table. She didn't try to fix anything when she let Brooks' lies echo louder than my son's entire childhood. She didn't try to fix anything when I walked out and she didn't call. He just sat there. Then she asked if there was any way to move forward. I told her the only person I'd be staying in touch with was Dad. She left quietly. I haven't seen her since. A week later I got a letter in the mail. From Kyle. Typed. It was basically a non-apology. Said he regretted the misunderstanding and hoped this wouldn't permanently damage family dynamics. I burned it. I didn't show Mason. He was finally starting to come back to himself. And I wasn't about to let a thief have the final word. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought after the video, the fallout, the silence, I'd finally drawn a line deep enough for them to stay on their side. But I should have known better. People like Brooke don't like to lose. And when they do, they try to rewrite the ending. It started small. A Facebook post from her. Some vague quote about how some people destroy families for attention. I ignored it. Then one of her friends messaged me directly, asking if I was really still angry about just some misunderstanding. That told me everything I needed to know. Brooke was rewriting it. In her version, Kyle had made a mistake. A moment of weakness. No theft, just a family issue blown way out of proportion by me, the dramatic sister. The one who always had issues with them. What infuriated me wasn't just the lie, it was how quickly people believed it. How fast they wanted the simpler version. A stolen $6,000? Oh, that's too messy. Easier to believe I overreacted. Then came the group dinner invite. My dad called and said Brooke and Kyle were hosting a reconciliation dinner. Just close family. Just to heal. Said he thought maybe it would be good for Mason to see that things could be mended. I laughed. Actually laughed. I asked if Brooke ever apologized. If Kyle had even said the words, "I stole it." My dad went quiet. Said no, not exactly, but Brooke had admitted they could have handled things differently. That's what counted, right? Though, what counted was that they accused my son. In front of everyone. With no proof, no hesitation. What counted was that they watched him cry and still doubled down. That they looked at me like I was the problem when I showed the truth. I told my dad not to bring this up again. I could forgive a lot of things, but what I saw that day, the way my family looked at Mason like he was nothing, I couldn't forget that. A few nights later, I got a text from an unknown number. All it said was, "Why are you doing this to us?" It was Kyle. I didn't respond. I blocked the number. Then came the final straw. Mason's school counselor called me in. Said someone had submitted an anonymous message through the school portal, suggesting Mason might be involved in dishonest behavior at home. No specifics, just a vague, cowardly little hint dropped into a system meant to protect kids. I asked to see the message. It was typed in a way that sounded very adult. Too polished. Not a student. Not a teacher. Just enough wording to raise a flag. The school had to follow protocol, but the counselor made it clear she didn't believe it. She said Mason was one of the kindest, most respectful kids she'd met. I sat in my car after that meeting shaking, because I knew exactly who did it. They couldn't smear us face to face anymore, so now it was whispers and shadows. Trying to get into Mason's head. Trying to hurt him from a distance. That was it. I changed my number. Locked down our social media. Told my dad not to visit anymore unless he came alone and never brought up healing. And then I wrote a letter. Not to send, just for myself. I wrote down everything, every word they said, Every look at that table, every tear Mason shed. I ended it with one sentence. You tried to break my son to protect your lie. You'll never get near him again. It's been almost a year since that Thanksgiving. Sometimes I still wake up with it all playing in my head. The accusations, Mason's face, the silence that followed the truth. But what really sticks with me is the feeling I had sitting at that table. Watching people I'd known my whole life turn on my son like he was disposable. There's no recovering from that. Mason's better now. He bounced back faster than I did, honestly. Kids are resilient in a way adults can't fake. He joined the robotics club, made some new friends, started smiling again. Still quiet sometimes, especially when someone mentions family. But he's okay. I never told him about the anonymous report at school. He didn't need that weight. My mother emailed once, just once. The subject line said, "Please, Ashley." Inside was a paragraph about how time heals, how family has to come before pride, how Mason will need his extended relatives someday. She ended it by saying she hoped I could find it in my heart to move past the hurt. I didn't reply, not because I was holding a grudge, but because I'd already moved past it, just not in the way she wanted. See, for a long time I thought this whole thing had ripped my family apart. But then I realized something. My family didn't fall apart that day. It exposed itself. They were never really protecting each other. They were protecting the story, the image, the illusion that we were one of those perfect families who took matching Christmas photos and sent out newsletters full of fake smiles. When that cracked, I saw the truth. And the truth was, I was never really part of their family. Mason wasn't either. We were convenient when it made them look good, invisible when it didn't, and disposable the second things got uncomfortable. Now it's just me and Mason. A smaller circle but a stronger one. No secrets. No fake apologies. No forced dinners with people who smile to your face and stab your kid in the back. And I've never felt more certain about anything. Let them have their dinner parties. Let them post their family selfies and edit the story to make themselves feel better. Let them pretend I was the crazy one. They know what happened, and more importantly, they know I know. That hard drive is still in my drawer. I don't look at it anymore, but I keep it. Not because I need proof, but because it reminds me what I'm capable of when it comes to protecting my son. They tried to destroy him. Instead, they destroyed themselves.